Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So there is going to be an upcoming Tooth Fairy banner and she is all the hype right now. Everyone's talking about her, everyone wants to get a copy of Tooth Fairy, but we still have one more month before her banner drops. So before that, should you or should you not be getting Tooth Fairy and why is she so good? So let's find out. Okay, so over here I have the differences between Tooth Fairy and another very big healer that we have right now, which is Medicine Pocket, who has not yet had her banner. So I apologize that everything here is very small, it's very hard to see, but it's not the first time that you heard that, right? Okay, so for this video, I'm just going to briefly go through what the differences are between Tooth Fairy and Medicine Pocket and whether you should be going for Tooth Fairy or not, and that also depends on whether you have Medicine Pocket, in my opinion. Okay, so for a basic free-to-play player, right, if you already have Medicine Pocket by lucking out in the current banner, then simply put, I wouldn't advise you to go for Tooth Fairy because resources is just super rare, and for the most part, they are kind of similar with regard to their function, but that is not to say that Tooth Fairy is identical to Medicine Pocket. That is not true at all. Now, for the rest of the players who do not yet have your own Medicine Pocket or any good healers, then Tooth Fairy is definitely one of the characters that you might want to consider because not only is she an excellent healer, she also enables most of your DPS characters to play the crit build. Let me show you an example, right? We have Eternity here. Here are her resonance stats, and you can see that she has an additional 16% crit rate. But if I were to push for all the crit rate, right, all the bonuses over here, I would have another 5.5, I would have another 4%, I would have another 6% here for a grand total of an additional 15% plus, which means that my total reso crit rate here would be about 31%, and that is at reso 9. But if I were to raise this to reso 10, my crit is probably going to go up by about another 1% or 2%, something like that, which means that my total potential crit rate is going to look something like, I don't know, 40%, right, if I include the additional 7.7 at the start. So the thing is, most of your DPS characters, unless they are Lilia for example, they are not going to have very decent crit rates at all. Their crit rates are all generally going to be very low, like around less than 50%, which is where Tooth Fairy comes in, covers that distance, and allows you to play more critically. So in order for you to understand what I mean, let me go through Tooth Fairy skills, and I'm going to leave Medicine Pocket on the right so they can compare because they are for the most part very similar. Okay, starting with the ultimate, this is what Tooth Fairy does. So one single target attack, 500% mental damage, and this attack enjoys 30% additional crit rate. After landing a crit, you will also purify all of your allies by all the debuffs that they have. So stats down, negative status, or control statuses. So this in itself is pretty good, so it allows her to deal decent DPS, and at the same time, it also cleanses your entire team. Very nice. Now moving on to her first skill, Empty Gums. This is probably her main selling point, in my opinion. So at level 1, which is whatever that you need, one single target attack deals 150% mental damage, goes all the way up to 450%, that is the only difference, and gives the target one stack of confusion, lasts for one round, not lasts. Okay, so this is what confusion does. Critical resist of the enemy is reduced by 25%, which means effectively all of your allies, whenever they attack that enemy, they are going to land a critical hit with an additively 25% crit rate. Now next skill, we have Lullaby. Massive heal, heals all allies based on a caster's attack, goes up from 80% to 200%, exactly the same as Medicine Pocket by the way, right? 80 to 200%. However, this skill also enjoys a 30% additional crit rate. You have the potential to heal a lot more than just 200% HP. However, do take note that this crit rate bonus will not enjoy the effect of confusion because confusion only increases the crit rate that you're landing against enemies. It doesn't actually increase your own inherent crit rate, so it's only effective crit rate. So Lullaby is not going to benefit from confusion, which is slightly not that consistent. It's not the same as her ultimate, which naturally benefits from the confusion debuff that she own self applies. Okay, so moving on to the insights. Baby Tooth Collector at Insight 1. Upon entering battle, immediately gains 3 baby teeth. When any ally actively casts a skill, gains 1 baby tooth, and when a round begins, spends 5 baby tooth to reduce 15% crit resist and 15% critical defense for all enemies, and it only lasts for one single round. Okay, so what this means is on round 1, you're not going to have 5 baby teeth, so you're not going to benefit from this, but on your second round, you are most likely going to have 5 baby teeth unless you're running like a AFK comp, like using Pickles for example. Otherwise, on round 2, you are going to have 5 baby teeth. You're instantly going to reduce the enemy's crit resist and crit damage defense by 15%, and on round 3, same thing, you're not going to benefit from it. Round 4, you are going to benefit from it, so it goes on and on and on every alternate rounds. So every alternate round, you will enjoy that 15% crit resist, and on top of that, you will also enjoy, if you use this skill, an additional 25% negative crit resist on the enemy. So assuming you're spamming Empty Gums every single round, on round 1, your team has a 25% effective crit rate, on round 2, your team has a 40% effective crit rate, and on round 3, it goes back to 25%, round 4, it goes back up to 40%, so on and so forth. You kind of get it, right? So every other round, that means Eternity would have very good crit rate, and that means she has the potential to land a lot of big DPS, especially since she has a ton of resonances that requires her to crit. So for example, we have crit damage over here, 3%, and we have another 9% crit damage over here, and this is only a Reso 9. But on top of that, you can see that we have a very high base crit damage of 141.5%. So long as we land a crit, our DPS is going to increase by an additional 50% on average, something like that. So that means that Tooth Fairy is a healer that not only deals decent damage and lands pretty good heals, she also increases damage output that your team does by quite a significant amount, so long as you're able to guarantee crits all the time. Now let's move on to her insight too. So upon entering battle, plus 40% healing effect. This is insane, dude. Let's take a look at Medicine Pocket, for example, right? Her insight 3, if the caster's HP is below 50%, healing done plus 10%. This says plus 40%. The difference is massive. I'm not sure why that's the case. Is this power creep? I don't know. But this is her insight 3. When stat debuff effect of Baby Tooth is triggered, you then heal your allies by another 10% of the HP lost, which is honestly just a very small amount, which means every other turn when you're able to trigger Baby Tooth, then you'll be able to heal your team by another 10%, which is not as good as Apple, basically. Apple heals 8% of your lost HP every single turn. But upon entering battle, you gain 2 additional baby teeth. So on round 1, you're instantly going to have 5 baby teeth. So that alternate round effect where you have 25% crit rate, 40% crit rate, 25% crit rate, so on and so forth, is going to be shifted back one time. So you start off round 1 with 40% crit rate, which allows you to have a bigger burst at the start, basically. But is it important? I don't think the Insight 3 is important at all, to be honest. It's completely skippable in my opinion. Now moving on to her portrays, you see that she is actually needed at P5. Dude, crit resist and crit defense reduction debuffs from baby teeth are increased to negative 25% from 15%. So that further means you do not need additional crit rate on your DPS characters, and that also means your DPS characters have an additional effective 25% crit damage just going by this P5 effect. So she will be a very willable character because, as you can see, Medicine Pocket on the right, she don't quite have the same portrait effects, right? So Tooth Fairy definitely scales with even more copies of herself if you're able to obtain more, especially if you're a paid player. So for the most part, I feel like Tooth Fairy is a little bit better than Medicine Pocket in the sense that you are able to push more DPS than Medicine Pocket can. So that's it for this video. This is the reason why Tooth Fairy is so sought after by the CN vets. And let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you agree or disagree? Do you think Tooth Fairy is a necessity? And if you already have Medicine Pocket, what are you going to do? Are you also going to chase for Tooth Fairy or not? Let me know down in the comments below. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to give a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Reverse 999 content. Now with that said, this has been Derry Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.